On November 8, 1942, as dawn broke over the gray waters off Sidi Farak Beach, Algeria American infantrymen stepped onto hostile shores, carrying with them a weapon they barely understood, a crude steel tube packed inside. Crates stamped secret. It was the first combat appearance of the M1 rocket launcher, soon to earn the nickname Bazooka. To most soldiers, it looked like nothing more than a plumber's pipe. But in truth, it would change the nature of modern warfare, transforming the foot soldier from helpless target into the tank's deadliest hunter. The story of this simple weapon began months earlier at the Aberdeen Proving Grounds in Maryland, where Colonel Leslie Skinner and Lieutenant Edward Oule scrambled to impress a panel of skeptical generals with new anti-tank concepts. The British were developing massive, 100-pound spigot mortars that needed trained crews, but Oule had something far simpler: a piece of scrap tubing, a coat hanger bent into crude sights, and a handful of experimental rockets. Wearing a welder's mask, he fired the makeshift launcher at a moving tank. The rocket streaked forward, struck the armor, and detonated perfectly. The astonished generals watched as Oule reloaded in seconds and scored another direct hit. General Barnes, chief of research and engineering, laughed and called it a bazooka, after a comedian's homemade musical horn, and with that, one of the most influential weapons of the 20th century was born. Within days, 5,000 launchers were ordered into mass production. By October 1942, factories like General Electric were producing 5,000 per month, each weighing just 13 pounds and costing barely $25. The rocket itself could punch through 4 inches of armor, enough to cripple most tanks on Earth. Training was so simple that soldiers could learn it in a single afternoon, a staggering advantage compared to the heavy, crew-served anti-tank guns of the past. But when those first bazookas reached North Africa for Operation Torch, disaster nearly struck. Eisenhower himself discovered, the night before the invasion, that no one had opened the sealed crates or trained the men. The launchers lay unassembled on the decks of landing ships, and the troops were forced to figure them out under enemy fire. Saltwater had corroded the rockets, fuses failed, and the first shots fizzled uselessly. Yet amid the confusion came moments of triumph too. French Renault tanks destroyed near Port Lyautey marked the weapon's first confirmed kills. Word of this strange tube that could kill armor spread quickly, and by February 1943, during the Battle of Kasserine Pass, Rommel's troops captured several intact launchers. Within weeks they were on their way to Germany, where engineers immediately recognized their genius. Lightweight, cheap, and devastating, it was everything German doctrine lacked. By September 1943, the Wehrmacht had built its own scaled-up copy, the 88mm Panzerschreck, a bigger, deadlier cousin of the American original. Meanwhile, the U.S. refined its own design. The new M1A1 model reached Sicily in July 1943, where paratroopers of the 82nd Airborne used them to destroy 17 German tanks, including one legendary shot straight through the vision slit of a tiger. The bazooka's arrival changed everything. For the first time, infantrymen no longer feared approaching armor. Tank panic, that hopeless dread when steel monsters advanced and began to vanish. In Italy, soldiers used the bazooka not just on tanks, but on bunkers, buildings, and even stone walls, blasting paths through towns like Ortona. What began as an anti-tank weapon evolved into a multi-purpose tool of destruction. By 1944, every U.S. infantry battalion carried at least 24 launchers, and German commanders issued orders warning tank crews to avoid entering villages. Without infantry support, crews welded spare track links, sandbags, and even concrete slabs onto their hulls to survive bazooka hits. By D-Day, the weapon had become standard issue, and as American troops fought through the hedgerows of Normandy, bazooka teams lay in ambush among the tall grass. Reports credited them with 12% of all German tank losses in the U.S. sector. During the first 6 weeks after June 6, 1944, cheap, portable, and deadly, the bazooka had become as essential as the rifle itself. The brutal winter of 1944 put it to the ultimate test during the Battle of the Bulge. Batteries froze, propellants misfired, and rockets failed in the bitter cold. Yet soldiers adapted, keeping their ammunition warm inside their coats until the moment of battle. Even then, bazookas destroyed or disabled nearly 90 German armored vehicles. One sergeant described hitting a Panther tank at 75 yards, setting its engine ablaze and forcing the crew to flee. The weapon's simplicity invited creativity. Major Charles Bazooka Charlie Carpenter strapped 6 launchers under the wings of his tiny L-4 Grasshopper observation plane and hunted tanks from the sky, destroying several German armored cars and earning legendary status among the troops. By the war's end, nearly 500,000 bazookas and over 15 million rockets had been produced. The cost difference was staggering. For the price of one Sherman tank, the Army could buy thousands of launchers and enough rockets to stop an entire armored division. German tanks, built with precision engineering and costing tens of thousands of Reichsmarks, could be destroyed by an $8 rocket fired by a 19-year-old private. Post-war analysis revealed that roughly 12% of all German tanks in the European theater were destroyed by bazookas, but the psychological effect was far greater. German crews began abandoning tanks at the mere rumor of bazooka teams nearby. The terrifying momentum of blitzkrieg had been broken not by bigger tanks or heavier guns, but by mass-produced steel tubes wielded by citizen soldiers. The weapon's legacy didn't end in Europe. In the Pacific, Marines used bazookas to blast Japanese bunkers and caves, firing thousands of rockets in battles like Iwo Jima. During the Korean War, the original 2.36-inch model struggled against Soviet T-34 tanks, but the new 3.5-inch Super Bazooka restored American confidence, once again proving that simplicity and firepower could coexist. The idea spread worldwide. The Soviet RPG, the British Law, and the Swedish Carl Gustaf all trace their lineage directly to that humble tube invented from scrap metal and a coat hanger. The bazooka became more than a weapon. It was a symbol of democratic ingenuity, a reminder that in total war, victory favored not complexity but adaptability. German engineers had prided themselves on the mechanical perfection of the Tiger and Panther, yet those masterpieces fell to the mass production of a free people. The bazooka showed that power could rest in the hands of the ordinary soldier, that courage and creativity could outweigh armor and precision. By the end of the war, German commanders admitted bitterly that the American rocket launcher had ended the independence of the tank. Blitzkrieg, once unstoppable, had been humbled by a $25 invention built by factory workers and wielded by farm boys who had never even seen a tank before that. November morning in North Africa, and so the story came full circle. What began as a piece of junk tubing on a Maryland test range ended by reshaping modern warfare. The bazooka turned fear into confidence, defense into offense, and soldiers into hunters. From the beaches of Algeria to the snow of the Ardennes, that simple steel tube echoed a larger truth. That innovation often comes not from grand design but from desperate necessity. It was a weapon born in days, taught in hours, and carried into history by those who refused to surrender to steel and fear. The bazooka proved that even in the darkest days of war, the simplest idea, in the right hands, can change the course of the world, one rocket at a time.